Hillstead Museum in Farmington, Connecticut is a place where art and nature flourish together, just as the family that designed this estate intended. Hillstead is a colonial revival house built at the turn of the 20th century and maintained today just as it was when the family that built it lived here. Hillstead is their outstanding art collection. Hillstead is 150 acres of fields, trails, and scenic views. Hillstead is May Market and other seasonal events for the whole family. Hillstead is also a beautiful sunken garden, the site of the annual Sunken Garden Poetry Festival. This program and the ones that follow are an invitation to you to attend this summer's series of poetry and music events. Mimi Madden is the festival's artistic director.
If you're one of those people who encountered poetry back in high school and found it dull or obscure, you should try visiting Hillstead Museum on a summer evening and experience poetry in a whole new way. Every other week in the summer, hundreds of people converge at this beautiful estate in Farmington, Connecticut to hear some of the best poets in the country read poetry that is relevant and accessible. Audiences love the informality and outdoor setting of the Sunken Garden Poetry Festival. You can bring lawn chairs or blankets, pack a picnic, or buy dinner and wine from the festival vendors. There's an hour of live music first, anything from jazz to folk to classical. And then you can hear some of America's foremost poets read their work in the quiet of a summer's evening. The festival's ongoing popularity is evidence that poetry still holds an important place in American culture, and that poetry has a unique power to remind us of our common humanity. For this series of television programs, we have selected readings from the summer of 2012, our 20th anniversary season. We hope they'll give you an idea of what it's like to spend an evening in our garden, and we hope that you'll join us in the summer of 2013 to hear the featured poets. Pulitzer Prize winners Tracy K. Smith and Philip Schultz, the human rights advocate Carolyn Forche, Cuban-American poet Richard Blanco, and the well-known and well-loved Billy Collins.
I love the question, where are you from? I've been meeting a lot of people here today, and the initial question, where are you from, is usually, well, Western Pennsylvania or, from nearby Connecticut. And I love how that question deepens over time. Say we went out to the car and took a nip of Robitussin together. Let's just say. I think the question would go deeper. All of a sudden, I'd hear more about where you're from. And there's this ever-deepening process of getting to know people. And the first starts with place. And I do believe that place literally comes up out of our mouths. If we're born in a city, you literally almost can see the buildings coming up in the vowels and in the click of the consonants. I was born in the country in West Tennessee, and I think that sound comes out of my mouth. But I love that whole question of where are you from. And today you'll know a little bit more about where I'm from. Maybe too much. I am from a dancing bunch of silly siblings, moonwalking like Michael Jackson to Smokey Robinson's Tears of a Clown. I'm from a dank kitchen of burnt bacon and the pop sound of a face slapping for daring to dispute the word of my mad mama. College boy, Yankee. I'm from a half-broke horse, hogs, 2 cats, and 6 dogs. Named Rascal number 1, Rascal number 2, Rascal number 3, 4, 5, and Rascal number 6. Can I get a witness? Do you hear me? I'm from the foul line, way past dinner time. Sink 20 free throws or don't come inside for supper. I'm from a tearful team of 2 tall girls whose only dream was to one day sitteth at the right hand of Pathead Summit and play ball for Tennessee. I'm from suspender-wearing octogenarians, idling gregarians shoving checkers on a grocery store porch, hopped up on 6 glasses of sweet tea a day. I'm from a ruby red telephone, sitting all alone when the prank calling panty man solicits my sister. And my daddy blows that referee whistle into the receiver till he's hot damn blue in the face. I'm from squat spying on the next door neighbor who threatens to rip the stitches from the witch's back if she won't cut out all the complaining. I'm from fire, more than ice, Bible, more than brains, Captain Kangaroo and Hee-Haw in a blue bond with boredom. I'm from Nina, Jonas, Hattie and Bill, and my brother, mostly my brother, those shookin' job dance steps around that beehive back bedroom. I'm from back then, more than right now. Can you go there? Do you know how? Where are you from? Where on earth are you from?
All poets love language deeply. It's a primary relationship. And this is a poem about that. It's also set in my town of Deep River, Connecticut. And 2 of my Deep River neighbors are here today, so I wanted to read it. Name Gourmand, Post Cove, Deep River, Connecticut. Words like arrow, rum, water, purslane, and false pimpernel are new to me now that I live on a riverine tidal marsh. These plants grow about or in the cove, where out with the tide and in the common mummy chug and banded killifish swim. I walk the cove's edge with a field guide in my pocket, trying to spot golden club, sweet flag, reed canary grass. I imagine if I've seen a thing, its name will spring to mind when I want it to, and I will grow more at home in this place. Plus, I enjoy the luscious touch of common names about the roof and floor, teeth edge of my mouth, the salivate, sexy sensation, a poet's aphrodisiac. There's honest homage in me, too. My way of kissing the ring of English for having crowned me English-speaking. One evening last summer, I spied the marsh bellflower, dabs of blue amid chartreuse bright wild rice sprigs, 2 yards from bursts of burr marigold and rosy meadow rue, and I'm still hunting for the uncommon Hudson arrowhead, the cut-leaved water horehound. However did a plant get hound in its name? But I don't want to pause for etymological dreaming, to halt the serrate and rattling runs of consonants, the shallow and broad bellow of vowels, all that music that in trickles or rills or dips or blows trips the switch of this or that synapse, the Wernicke and Broca areas of my cerebral cortex flaring up like hydrogen firestorms on the sun, my entire body scintillant and quick, with the rushing in, flushing out, whisking blood.
So, since I've disappeared, it's the perfect opening for this poem I'm going to read first, in which I do think about disappearing, one day not waking in my body. The poem is addressed to David. It comes from One Body. One day I will not wake in my body as you know it, or go from the bed to the open door to breathe in the fresh glory of the morning. Although you will not see me, by afternoon I will be wind, unfenced in the expanse between towering clouds of oyster and plum air. I will be in the oak, in the ivy, in the spillway and banks thick with iris, yellow-eyed and blue, and in the tannic and bittersweet silk of the pond over which clouds pause and reflect before shattering the surface. I will be in the rain, in the stone, in the root, in the fruits of the garden. You will take me into your mouth, as so often you have, and we will be one body of solitudes and barrens and wilds. We will be mountain and cirrus, salamander, owl in the dark husk of winter, a crescendo of cicadas in summer. We will fly in a green flash of light over fields taking shape in early morning mists. Here, always here. So close, there is nothing deeper I can tell you than what we already know.
Baptism. Things keep going on the way they do, except one day in the middle of nothing, they don't. I remember how hot it was, not a creak from the windmill, and the Fords our folks had come in steamed. We stood around. Our pockets were no place for hands, they said, and wouldn't let us in the dark of the barn or anywhere God wouldn't be, because the preacher was in the yard to baptize whoever he could in Tatum's water tank. 6 lined up. I envied them the cool of their gowns and the year or so they had on me, but not the way he dragged them under and kept them there so long they bucked like bullheads. Mostly I went along with the hymn book someone pushed at me, until he got to Ellen McGee, held her under, and didn't stop, thinking maybe anything that pretty was bound for goings on. I was ready for something like the cat I had tried to drown and failed, when up she came as sweet, and stood for a spell at the edge of the tank, at home in the sky. And her gown, wet through, was true to her. And her face was where the sun had been.
This is from the anthology, At Spike's Garage. At Spike's Garage, near the university, I pull in for gas. It's the olden days, and Ernie, the mechanic, comes out from the bay to pump my gas. I'm in grad school in my second year teaching freshman English, and Ernie's fixed my car a few times at his house to spare me Spike's cut for parts and labor. Ernie, a townie, about 22, bushy-haired with greasy blue coveralls, oil under his nails, locks the pump on and says, "So, Professor, what are you teaching?" It's Friday, and I remember the dazed group I tried to teach that morning, sleepy and hungover, leading a discussion, one more session, pulling teeth. Hamlet, I tell him, you know, Shakespeare. He stops in mid-squeegee as blue water streams down my window. Hamlet, he spits. Ugh. I had to read that in high school. It was awful, so boring. He seems to say what my students only thought. And for a second, I wonder if I'm cut out for this, trying to teach great works to people who hate them. Hamlet, he says again, shaking the squeegee. He didn't even know when to shit. Finally, he pulls it across the window, wiping the excess liquid off the rubber with his fingers. Macbeth, he says. Now that was a play. went on to give me 15 minutes of the best analysis of Macbeth you could ever hope to hear.
I thought I would begin with the poem that almost got me electrocuted back in 1992 over in the makeshift theater when I read it. Remembering my parents' sex life. They danced in the kitchen while supper was on. Bodies pressed, Glenn Miller, all 6 burners on the old caloric flicking their skirts aflame. The tuneless buzz of my father's hummed accompaniment like an insect trap beneath the music. Pure interlude, 6 children in 10 years. A pinch, a slap, flesh resonating its applause, a dip and sweep among the tapping pot lids, scattered cats and chairs. They showered late at night, disappeared and reappeared in full nocturnal dress. No bleating springs, no sharp intake of breath, and never anything above the flannel sheets but one head breathing sleep into the other's nape. I never saw my father naked, and am grateful now for that. Grateful that I came into my knowledge innocent and late, that someone had to teach me everything except the music, which I danced to when my time came, as if born to it, in all that steam and clatter. Someone said, are you going to read that poem about your parents having sex? I said, no, it's the poem about my parents not having sex.
So I'm going to read one poem, which is one poem that's new, not yet published. This is called Bird Feeder. It's a new form invented by Terence Hayes called the Golden Shovel. It's a poem in which the last words of the lines are taken, composed of a phrase written by another poet. Terence's Golden Shovels are all based on phrases from Gwendolyn Brooks' poems. And this is a poem also with a phrase based on Gwendolyn Brooks' poem. The phrase is, "Live not for battles won, live not for the end of the song, live in the along." My poem is called Bird Feeder. Approaching 70, she learns to live at last. She realizes she has not accomplished half of what she struggled for, that she surrendered too many battles and seldom celebrated those she won. Approaching 70, she learns to live without ambition, a calm lake face, not a train bound for success and glory. For the first time, she relaxes her hands on the controls, leans back to watch the coming end. Asked, she'd tell you her life is made out of the things she didn't do as much as the things she did do. Did she sing a love song? Approaching 70, she learns to live without wanting much more than the light in the catbird window seat where, watching the voracious fist-sized tweets, she hums along.
In knowledge of young boys. I knew you before you had a mother, when you were newt-like, swimming, a horrible brain in water. I knew you when your connections belonged only to yourself, when you had no history to hook on to barnacle, when you had no sustenance of metal, when you had no boat to travel, when you stayed in the same place treading the question. I knew you when you were all eyes and a cocktail, blank as the sky of a mind, a root, neither ground nor placental. Not yet red with a cut, nor astonished by pain, one terrible eye open in the center of your head to night turning, and the stars blinked like a cat. We swam in the last trickle of champagne before we knew breast milk. Son, we were oak without mouth, uncut. We were brave before memory. This one, Boy at the Patterson Falls. I don't know if you know the Patterson Falls, the Passaic Falls, but it's the second highest falls in North America, right in Patterson, New Jersey. And I am a great lover of William Carlos Williams. He's kind of my poetry father, and he lived right down the street in Rutherford. And so I used to go and sit out in front of his house when I lived in New Jersey, and the sign was still out because his son still practiced there, practiced medicine. And I would just sit in front of the house and think about him up on that third floor in the attic writing those poems. And then afterward, I would go to the falls and I'd walk over the bridge. And one time I heard this story told as I was walking over the bridge. But I wrote it in a class I was teaching in the Poets in the School program, and I was teaching 4th grade. And all of the kids, you know, I'd have them write poems all week. In this one particular class, I remember asking on the 4th day, you know, I said, okay, kids, we've been writing poems all week, so what is a poem? And everybody gets really quiet, you know, thoughtful. 4th grade is so fabulous. And Sheldon raises his hand and he says, Toy, I don't know what a poem is, but it makes you shut up. And it's really true. I mean, if you notice, it's the only thing that really, even before the poet opens his or her mouth, the room just, boom, gets quiet. There's a level of expectation. And so pay attention to that. Sometimes it happens when nobody even knows that poems are going to be read. So there's something being communicated. I don't know what. So I had asked them to write a poem about an animal, and I wrote this poem, Boy at the Patterson Falls. I'm thinking of that boy who bragged about the day he threw a dog over and watched it struggle to stay upright all the way down. I am thinking of that rotting carcass on the rocks, and the child with such power he could call to a helpless thing as if he were its friend, capture it, and think of the cruelest punishment. It must have answered some need, some silent screaming in a closet, a motherless call when night came crashing. It must have satisfied, for he seemed joyful, proud, as if he had once made a great creation out of murder. That body on the rocks, its angles slowly took the shape of what was underneath. Bones pounded until it lay on the bottom like a scraggly rug. Nothing remains but memory and the suffering of those who would walk into the soft hands of a killer for a crumb of bread. Touching, not touching my mother. That first night in the hotel bedroom, when the lights go out, she's already sleeping. that woman who has always claimed sleeplessness. Inside her quiet breathing, like a long red gown. How can she sleep? My heart beats as if I am alone for the first time with a lover or a beast. Will I hate her drooping mouth, her old woman rattle? Once I nearly suffocated on her breast. Now I can almost touch the other side of my life. Undressing in the dark, looking, not looking, we parade before each other, old proud peacocks in our stretch marks with hanging butts. We are equals. No more do I need to wear her high heels to step inside the body of a woman. Her beauty and strangeness no longer seduce me out of myself. I show my good side, my long back, strong, mean legs, my thinness that came from learning to hold back from taking what's not mine. No more a thief for love. She takes off her bra facing me, and I see those gorgeous globes, soft, creamy, high. My mouth waters. How will I resist crawling in beside her, putting my hand for warmth under her thin nightdress? Lighting the tulips. It's all about longing. How just before it enters the brain, shot straight out of the heart, it falls into sparks, maybe just behind the vocal cords where it touches the new words and transmutes into feeling. 4 shining branches that break and splinter like ice. I meditate, and after memory fades, there are these 4 sparklers firing. This is being with the self as your hands would cup spring flowers. I slip the dark pink tulips from their sleeve, set them cautiously on the rim of the sink, bring the right-sized glass vase and carefully lift each one, really tenderly. I think of their soft spined stems, of just how much force the fingers must close with, how much tension in the muscles between the power of dropping and lifting that will bring forth moment by moment a slow awareness of this certain caring, of the scissors on a stem, of the amazing lightness of this one's being between my fingers.